Welcome to Black Nouveau. This is our edition for August. I'm Joanne Williams. Much of tonight's program will feature the 3 candidates for Milwaukee County Sheriff. We'll talk with each of them individually. We'll also profile Dasha Kelly. Most of us know her as a spoken word poet and founder of the Still Waters Collective. She's also a published novelist. We spoke with her at a Great American Read gathering. We begin tonight with the candidates for Milwaukee County Sheriff.
Ernell Lucas is a 25-year veteran of the Milwaukee Police Department who retired as captain in 2002 to take a job with Major League Baseball. Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So what have you learned in your years of law enforcement that prepared you for this position?
Yeah, I feel that my experiences both in now Major League Baseball for the past 16 years, but more importantly in the Milwaukee Police Department, James has taught me, the values of integrity. So important that a officer has the integrity to serve a community, to lead in times of trouble, and most importantly, to be accountable to the people you serve. And most importantly, it's not enough to just accept credit when things go right, but to bear the responsibility when things go wrong. So those are lessons I've taken away from me in my 40-plus year career in public safety and law enforcement.
What would be your top 3 priorities?
I feel that we got to restore the honor and trust that the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office has lost over the past few years. We've got to learn to partner and develop relationships with the community that we serve. I have a number of ideas, whether it's forming park watches so that we can protect and secure those parks, over 150 parks that we have here in Milwaukee County. We've got to partner with the 19 municipalities in Milwaukee County to do something about the recklessness that we see on our freeways and highways. And then we've got to learn to deliver a higher level of service to our community. And that's what I hope to accomplish with the Sheriff's Department. And then overall, I think we've got to address the problems obviously in the jail. We've seen the deaths of 7 individuals over the course of an 18-month period. Again, no accountability on the part of the former sheriff or even the acting to take responsibility for things that went wrong there. We've got to put leadership in place there and hold them accountable. We've got to change the screening process so that those individuals that come in with pre-existing conditions can have their needs addressed. And then we've got to put in a system that treats people with more humanity, more dignity than has happened over the course of the last 2 administrations at the Sheriff's Office. So that's what I hope to accomplish coming through the door.
Now you talk about restoring trust, and the trust was lost. How was that trust lost?
Well, it's certainly the former sheriff was one who did not shy away from being controversial, saying disparaging things about people in this community. James, I was born and raised in this community. Grew up, was born in the Hillside Housing Project, a product of the Milwaukee Public School System. It's so important that leaders in our community set an example for young men and women to aspire to get out of the same conditions that I and so many others got out of. And so I felt that by his being so disparaging of this community, again, he broke the trust. We lost faith in the leaders, not only in the sheriff himself, but those under him. And as a result now, again, that's work that has to be repaired coming through the door.
What should the relationship be between the sheriff and the county executive?
I think it should be one of cooperation. I, in my years, both in the police department and in baseball, have had no trouble in dealing with people. I've been able to reach across the aisle no matter what our differences are. I learned a lesson, certainly working with the commissioner, Bud Selig, in baseball, that we can get more accomplished and resolved in the back of the room than we can out in public. So if we have differences, we're going to do those, address those issues in the back of the room and not air our laundry out in public. But I'm confident in my ability to work with the executive, work with the supervisors, as well as with the residents of Milwaukee County and businesses and community-based organizations to make our community strong and safe.
What are some of your relationships with the community?
Well, you know, I've been a lifelong member of this community. I'm still a member of St. Matthew's CME Church, the church I attended as a young boy. I'm very proud of that relationship there. I've served on the board at Sojourner Family Peace Center, which you know helps assist those families that have been impacted by domestic violence. I served 10 years with the board at Grand Avenue Club, an organization that works with those that have been challenged by mental illness. But I'm proud to be almost a life member now, as long as I've been working with the city and as well as with baseball. James, a supporter of the United Way here in Greater Milwaukee, support a number of causes, many all across this community. So I've been not only in my treasures, but in my time as well. I put a lot of time in this community, and I'm proud of my record.
Now, you went to Major League Baseball in 2002. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you were way too long from the duties that's going on right here in Milwaukee?
Yeah, I interact with law enforcement on a day-to-day basis more now than I ever did in the police department. We have 30 major league clubs and 160 minor league clubs. We have assets all over this country and all around the world. We have players from all around the country and all around the world. And on a day-to-day basis, any number of things are happening. Short of having arrest powers in baseball, we conduct as many investigations and are involved in a number of collaborations with local law enforcement. Just recently, the All-Star Game in Washington, D.C., which I was not there with all of the folks from security working this year's All-Star Game because obviously my commitment to the campaign. But it takes a lot of collaboration to put on an All-Star game, to put on a World Series game, and it requires, again, day-to-day contact, trips to and from the respective cities. And so, again, whether it's working on All-Star events, whether it's securing all of our 30 facilities at the major league level and 160 plus at the minor league level, again, there's a collaboration and a partnership with law enforcement that is very present and very constant as in my time in baseball.
Well, thanks for joining us.
I thank you so much, and thank you, audience, for having me.
Robert Ostrowski has been a deputy sheriff for 16 years, and he's the former president of the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Association. Welcome to Black Nouveau.
Thank you very much for asking me to be here.
You're running for sheriff, so I want to ask you first, what do you think you've learned in your years of law enforcement that make you a good candidate for sheriff?
I think in my years of working, first off, I've worked in every division of the Sheriff's Department, you know, the airport, jail, courts, and the Freeway Patrol Division. And I think I've learned really more of dealing with people. I mean, people of all different cultures. This is a very diverse city. You have people of all different cultures around here. And I really think that in law enforcement, I've got to see a whole different side that I never knew existed before I entered this career. And it's heartwarming to have people come up to you and thank you for the job that you do.
Does that happen often?
It does. It happens often. It doesn't even matter what parts of the city. I've been in some of the worst neighborhoods when I've backed up in the city of Milwaukee, and people come out and still thank me. And it's like I said, it's heartwarming because people care. People want us to do our jobs. They want us to do it well, and they want us to do it to the best of our abilities. And to know that people respect you, it's a very nice feeling.
You're running for office. What are your top 3 priorities for your campaign and for the office of sheriff?
Well, my top 3 priorities, I think within the sheriff's office, we have to have a sanctioned field training program. And I've brought this up in the campaign, and Acting Sheriff Schmidt will say we have one and we do not have one. I'm going to tell the public, and this is the honest truth that's coming out here, I'm being factual. He'll say it's not factual, but it is. But the training program that we have, basically, if you write a lot of tickets, you train somebody. And we need to have sanctioned field training officers, people that go to school, learn to train, and evaluate those that are actually doing the job. Because let's face it, in this country, people are losing ground with what law enforcement are doing. We need to make sure that we have the best people in place to do the job. And that's why you need a person that's trained to train and evaluate. And we don't do that in Milwaukee County. And it hasn't been that way since I've been there 16 years ago, and it continues. Acting Sheriff Schmidt sent one of our sergeants to school to be the trainer, and he's the only person that went. We have the paperwork, everything we do to fill out the forms, but we don't train the people the right way. So that is one of the #1 priorities, in my opinion. We have to get people trained properly. We have to have competent, ethical, caring people that want to do their job and serve the community.
Okay, what are number 2 and 3?
2 and 3 is basically to get the budget back in check. We have to spend our money appropriately with the Sheriff's Department. As the president, I've watched a lot of money being wasted. Like, we have captains, lieutenants, deputy inspectors, all have take-home squads, all right? But they have no responsibility to respond to anything. So the captain of, let's say, the courts division, we're paying for him, probably $3,000 a year to drive that vehicle, paying for the gas, for him to have that perk. And we need the squads on the line for the deputies. We need more equipment. So we have to take those benefits away from those that don't need them. Now, if you're a captain that's on call because you're the weekend commander, night shift commander, you have the responsibility. But why isn't those squads aren't being utilized correctly, sharing them with the other individuals? We on patrol or the airport share a squad. They could cut down on some of the expenses. It's mind-boggling that we waste so much money in so many different ways.
What else do you feel is important? Would one of them be the jail?
Oh, the jail is very important. And again, I blame a lot of the decisions on this administration because of the way they've hired and promoted people. Now, the acting Sheriff Schmidt will tell you I'm not being factual, but I am being factual. This agency promotes people based on their loyalties, not their abilities to lead, okay? That's why you're seeing these bad decisions happening in the jail, because these people are not true leaders. I'm not saying all of them, but a good portion of them. They need to look at who they promoted over the years. These people have to make sound decisions. When the death that we had for the dehydration, we've had people die in our jail, and a lot of times it's just health-related issues that these people had because of their lifestyles. But turn off a guy's water for 7, 8 days, that's ridiculous. I mean, we've turned off the water when I was in the jail, but it was so we wouldn't flood the cell and cause other damages. But we always turned the water back on. We always knew that the next shift knew that water was going to be turned off. We always turned the water back on. You say, hey, you got 10 minutes to use the facilities, get a drink, whatever. If you flood the cell, we're going to turn it off again. Those policies have to be looked at and make sure they're being done correctly.
Let me ask you about the relationship you're going to have with the county executive.
Well, Chris Abley, I dealt with him when I was president of the union. I talked to him several times. I think we had a good working relationship. I think we'll continue to have a good working relationship. And I think you have to. And it's not just with Chris Abley. It's with all of the politicians in this county. We need to form a unified group to actually fix these issues. As the sheriff of Milwaukee County, I shouldn't have to be there saying this is how it's going to be, I'm the boss. I want everybody to have input on how this agency is run, all the way down to the lowest deputy correction officer, even to the public, because they have a right to see what's going on internally. They should look at us like they're looking through a pane of glass.
And how are you going to relate to the communities in Milwaukee County? Because it's a big county and there are a lot of municipalities that run their own operations. How are you going to relate and work with them?
Well, that's where I think where we have to go out to the local chiefs of police and the local government officials and the municipalities and say, listen, the sheriff's office has an obligation to protect Milwaukee County. You guys have an obligation to protect your city or village. However, you might not have the staffing to do it. At this point, we don't have the staffing to do it. However, by working with Chris Abley and other government officials that have the policy and the power to put, let's say, more money in the budget, we can go to those communities and say, listen, if you need 2 deputies to attack this issue, I'm going to give you the 2 deputies. So it's really building that relationship, again, that I think was destroyed over the last 15 years.
Well, thank you very much for coming and talking with us about your campaign for Milwaukee County Sheriff.
Thank you very much for having me.
Acting Sheriff Richard Schmidt is a 31-year veteran of the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Department. Welcome to Black Nouveau.
Well, thanks for having me here.
Well, you have been with the department for 31 years. What do you think you've learned in the years of law enforcement that would make you a good sheriff for Milwaukee County?
Well, as quickly as I can put it, there's a massive amount of things. Tactically, administratively, in 31 years, I know how to do basically every job there is to do in law enforcement. So I'm very well versed from the statutory angles, from the tactical angle, and then I've been in administrative work for 15 years as well. And I also, by the way, I worked the streets. In fact, I made a good stop as recently as last night. So I have all this background. I'm very astute, if you will, in budgets. When I took over in September, we were $7 million in deficit. I promised we'd run a balanced budget. We're running a balanced budget. All the various aspects of public safety, balancing the budgets, knowing how to work with people, leadership principles, working with our wonderful 700 employees, all that makes me a good candidate for this position.
What are the 3 priorities that you put on your campaign and on what you would do if you were sheriff?
Right. One of the key things which the taxpayers, of course, want is that we maintain a balanced budget. There's been multi-million-dollar deficits up until when I took over. We're going to run a balanced budget. Another key area is our community relations. The previous administration, I think everybody's aware, was maybe a little bit toxic with some of the community leaders and some of the political leaders. I've made it my goal. I will not fight with politicians. I won't fight with people. We're working together from the county exec to the chief judge to the police chief to the mayor of city, all the local mayors, alder people, supervisors. I've been to see them. We have a tremendously good working relationship. We made some very positive moves. We've started some excellent task forces. So the only way that that happens is good community relations. I also started a community relations division where we go into the various communities. Quite frankly, the African American community and the Hispanic communities we just didn't do much in them before I took over. So we're going into these communities, getting into the schools, going to the community relations meetings, spending time with the people, showing them that we care and that law enforcement isn't just about the hardcore holding people accountable, but it's also about caring about people, showing them that, yes, we do care and trying to repair some of the damages that have been done in the past.
Okay, that's 2.5. What's number 3?
The third major initiative that we have is basically expressway patrols, city patrols. So what we've done is I've teamed up with the Milwaukee Police Department, with the State Patrol. You've noticed I do what I call saturation patrols. We don't have a lot of officers to do this. So we needed a force multiplier in order to get the horrific driving conditions that have popped up in Milwaukee County in the last several years. Speeds are 40, 50, 60 miles an hour over the limit, extremely dangerous. Just recently we had 2 major crashes, a semi that rolls over blocking traffic, a horrific fiery crash that took place on 43. All these things have to stop. Public safety demands it. So we're linked up with these task forces to make sure people are as safe as possible, that moms and dads and children and teenagers get to their destinations in a safe manner.
What do you want your relationship to be with the county executive? The previous sheriff's relationship with the county executive was a little bit tense. How are you going to relate to Chris Abley?
Well, September 1st when I took over, one of the first things that I did was I called the county exec's office to make an appointment with him. I've always had a good relationship with him, but I wanted to make sure he knew what page I was on and that we'd start off on, if you will, new terms. I went to see the county exec. We worked on some fantastic initiatives, which I'm not going to announce today, but we've got some great things going. The county exec wants fiscal responsibility, so do I. He wants good public safety, so do I. I think I can say this, and you can check with him to verify this, but he's a friend. We're working together. You're never, ever going to see me criticize the county exec or get into any kind of vitriolic kind of an exchange. We're working together. It's a great relationship, and I'm really happy about it.
What about the communities you serve? You cover all of Milwaukee County. What kind of relationship are you going to have with the various municipalities within the county?
Right, extremely important. So for years, I've been a part of what's called MCLEA, Milwaukee County Law Enforcement Executives Association. I know all the police chiefs. We're all friends. Again, the last 11 months I've been in office, you've never once seen me get on television or media and say something inappropriate or mean about someone. I don't do that. I work with these individuals. We get along well. I've been to see, I think, almost every single mayor and village president, barring maybe 1 or 2 that we haven't been able to connect on. I've been to see all our county supervisors. I've made appointments, and I think I've seen all but 1 of all the alder people in Milwaukee. So every single person that is in Milwaukee that's a political entity, so to speak, I've tried to get to see them. I've seen 99% of them up to this point. We have tremendous relationships, and that's what we're going to keep doing.
One of the big responsibilities of the Sheriff's Department is the jail. There have been some issues in the jail. There have been some deaths in the jail. What are your positions on making some changes so that we have a stronger and better jail system?
All right, so I have more than a position. I fixed it. In September 1st, when I took over, I called up the National Institute of Corrections, had my jail administrator talk to them. I ran the county jail from 2004 to 2010. I know corrections. I knew it needed to be fixed. The administration that was inside of that jail had to change. I changed the administration. I'm not going to go all the details now because of time, but I've changed the administration. I made the changes that needed to happen that we could with the medical and mental health vendors that were there. We've put in new command staff. We had 190 officers when I took over. We now have 240. I added 3 wellness coordinators that go cell to cell to cell to make sure that every single inmate is coherent, that they're eating, that they're drinking, that they're being taken care of. Haven't had a bad incident since I took over.
Well, thank you very much for coming and speaking with us, Acting Sheriff Richard Schmidt, for joining us here on Black Nouveau.
Thank you.
I never really believed in those girly fantasies of unicorns and rainbows because I was too busy chasing the unachievable dream of becoming 1/6 of vanity.
Most of us know Dasha Kelly as a spoken word artist and mentor to a new generation of wordsmiths. But before she waxed poetically, she fell in love with writing prose.
I have loved stories since I was a kid, and my mother invited me to play on the typewriter, which really was a selling piece. So the local library was having a short story contest, and she said, we should enter one of those, let's keep the kids busy during the summer moves, I'm sure. And I remember whatever the word count was, we'd exceeded it. So we never even turned the story in. And from that point, I was fascinated with being able to truly create the everything, the environment, the room that they were in, the characters' emotions, whether or not they were allergic to broccoli, hated their brother, from Mars, everything that happened on the page. I got to build it from a kernel of an idea, and that's always fascinated me, and I've always enjoyed that.
She not only loves to write, she also loves to read.
The very first book that made me cry was Beat the Turtle Drum. And I can remember reading the story. I was about 9 years old, and 2 things were happening. One, that here was this experience that happened. I'd been reading the Ramona stories. I'd been reading Ezra. I'd been reading all these narratives that were fun. I was 9. You're going to read stories that are fun. And in this story, there was a character that died. And how it happened and the why it happened. And I remember gasping because it was a surprise, it was a plot twist. And I couldn't stop crying. So when I'm dealing with this reality that happened in another world, I knew it was fiction, but I also know that these things happen in the world. So that was something that brought outside into my house, into my awareness. And the fact that the book was making me cry. I'd never had that kind of an emotional experience with something I was reading. And it stayed with me as how powerful that was. And I won't go so far as saying, in that moment, I knew that I'd be a writer and I'd change people's lives to the most. I just wouldn't have never forgotten the impact of reading a stranger, a fake person's story on the page and how it moved me.
She has written for local and national magazines and published 2 collections of her writing. She has also written 2 novels, and she is one of Milwaukee PBS's featured writers in PBS's Great American Read Project.
So I started this project of sending out these stories, and one of them became this self-published novel. So I got a bunch of no thank you letters. Then I got a call from an editor who became an editor someplace else, who then became an agent in William & Morris, who became my agent. So I'm an agent and author of one of the biggest talent agencies in the world. And I was like a name on his roster for a year and a half. I said, listen, are we gonna do this? So then we broke up because you know so much when you're young. But that made this real, this idea that I'd never considered. As much as I've loved to write, as much as I've loved to read, not once ever had I thought of being a writer. Who does that?
That manuscript became All Fall Down, her first novel. It would be followed by Almost Crimson. Both novels deal with mental health issues.
I thought I was going to go off and be a psychologist. I was going to be a family therapist, and I've always been intrigued by everything we know and mostly what we don't know about the mind. So both of my novels actually have a theme of mental health and mental wellness. Cece couldn't remember when her mother became too weak to carry anything but tears. When the sad started to come, pressing her mother to their bed, her mama cried slick, silent tears for a long, long time. Longer than a game of hopscotch, longer than singing the alphabet in her head 5 times, longer than a nap even. The sad made her mother cry all the time. Cece wasn't big enough to pry the sad away from her mama. Instead, she started to remember for them. After the building manager lady fussed at mama about their overstuffed mailbox, Cece remembered to pull the letters every day, even though mama seldom opened them. Cece loved the way everything about her mother would soften. There were still exceptional days, like today, when her mother tickled and ate sandwiches with her. Cece didn't hope for those days anymore, though. Hoping made her ache on the inside of her skin. My intention, my joy, is taking things that aren't capturable, emotions, vague ideas, that thing that you're not really sure why you're mad about, but you just know this experience is there, all the isms, trying to find ways to capture those human experiences that we all share, that we all have in common, and put them on a page so people can fall into these narratives and know that they're not alone, that they're not confused, that they're not crazy, and everything that falls in between.
There's still time for you to vote for your favorite book in the PBS Great American Read. Log on to our website, MilwaukeePBS.org, for more information. While you're there, check out the latest Black Nouveau web exclusives. And don't forget to like us on Facebook. Join us for our next edition on Thursday, September 7th at 9 p.m. MPS Interim Superintendent Dr. Keith Posley will be our guest. And please remember to vote on August 14th. For Black Nouveau, I'm Joanne Williams. Thanks for watching.